Liverpool 2, Brighton 1, De Zerbi dispatched. Liverpool 300 wins under Jurgen Klopp. Mo Salah with more shots than we can imagine. Scored the one goal, which was the winner, thank God. Alexis McAllister was absolutely majestic. Unbelievable player. Like, just, yeah, we're living in his world at the moment in that midfield, and thank God he plays for us and not the other team. So, yeah, really, really happy. Everyone who's joined us, thank you very much. Put us a comment in there. We really, really appreciate it if you are joining us for the first time. We're very interactive, so don't be scared. Put a message in there, and we will try and get round to it if we can. I hope you're all very happy with the results. Dan, how are you feeling after that result? Is it a sense of that's what I expected, or did it end up being a sense of phew, we got there in the end?
No, I think it was about how I expected it. I think what really surprised me was the fact that Brighton scored, especially like as early as they did, and the type of goal they scored, which was like, like that goal probably goes in like 10 times out of 100, and the other like 90 times it just goes wide or flashes wide, especially when it's Danny Welbeck, who, Manchester's very own Danny Welbeck back in the day, rolling back the years with that goal. No, I mean, I think it's more reflecting like how disappointed I was that we ended up drawing at Brighton early in the year when we were also much better than them, and we should have put that game to bed. And this game almost went down that road where, like, we go ahead, could have made it 3-1, probably should have made it 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And even this game, I think you could argue with the chances. I mean, even like the XG, I think that there was posted one was like 2.91 to 0.56. So like this isn't like Liverpool were like better and got lucky. This was very much like we were the much better side for most of the game, apart maybe in most of the chances that Brighton create are Liverpool just creating their own problems. It's not Brighton thoroughly outplaying us, but it's about what I expected. I think it shows, like, again, just how brilliant we are and why we are in a title race this year.
Yeah.
I think it also shows that, that this is not going to be easy on anyone's cardiovascular system. So if you're not taking care of your heart already, you might want to start, doing a couple laps around your house a bit just to start working up that cardio, because this is not going to be an easy last 9 games that we have coming up.
Oh, you're not lying there. It was funny. We were just chatting before off the stream, and I was watching the game, and it reminded me of a season when we went on to win the league, and the season we'd be on to win the Champions League. Is that when we went behind, I didn't worry. I didn't panic. I didn't feel like, oh God, right, that's changed the situation, because I didn't feel like it had. I felt like for us, we were going to need to score more than one goal that game to win it, in my opinion, even if the goal came within the first 90 seconds like it did, or whether it came in the last 90 seconds. I was always of the opinion that Brighton were going to find a way to score a goal, and you're absolutely right. I mean, what I will disagree on is I actually think that goal only goes in 1 in 100, because it was fantastic. It really, really was. It was an absolutely exceptional finish. But how many times do you see that not happening? Do you know what I mean? And it took something special to beat us. And as you've mentioned in the XG, Liverpool far and away were the team who was creating the better quality chances, just under 3 XG. 279 it says, and then Brighton's 0.44. And to be totally honest, the biggest point of it was from the goal he scored. So yeah, it was nervy, very much so towards the end. That was something that I was concerned on. We looked like a team who was like, we're in front now, what do we do with it? And you had half a team who were like, stick your foot on it and let's just see the game out. And another team who decided, no, I don't want to see that. What I want to see is us panicking for the last 15 minutes and giving us all a bit of a cardiovascular issue. So, yeah, no, I'm very, very, very pleased, because looking at this week, I said in our chat, this week is probably the most important week going forward, because it's 7 days, 3 games, of in which 2 are at home, 1's away. And in my opinion, we need to win all 3. We have to put the marker down early. As much as I don't think we have to win every game between now and the end of the season to win the league, I don't feel like we can drop the points early. I feel like we need to hold that bit in the bank. That draw needs to come later. It needs to come somewhere else, but not now. All 3 teams, Brighton, of course, they have this hoodoo over us, to be honest with you, in the relation of that they seem to play an awful lot better against us, however, can get turned over by teams who aren't as good as we are. But today we went out there, did the job, and I'm dead pleased that we got it done. And now we can sit back and enjoy the game that's currently ongoing between Man City and Arsenal, and they can stress about it for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think the most important game this month is United away. And it's not because, if we draw it, the league's gone, or, even if we lose it, God forbid we lose that game, because I do not want to give United fans the pleasure of having beaten us. Is that because if we win that game, I think that it's like it pretty much cements our position, because by that point, we'll know the result of the Arsenal City game, but also City have to play Villa, and Arsenal will be playing their second game as well. So everyone's going to be playing 3 games. And by that point, if Liverpool come out with 3 wins, then you're going to be in a commanding position, and you have the opportunity to say, drop points in the derby or drop points here or there, or it gives you some leeway to where you don't have to win all 9 or all 10. I think last year we also had like a big 9, a big 10, and we ended up winning 8 and drawing 1, I believe. What was the one we drew? Villa.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we're well and truly capable of doing it. We're well and truly capable of winning all 10. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that we've not been here and done this before. But it's obviously you can't rely on that situation. We can't rely on the other teams dropping points. As only today will we gain points on somebody. Hopefully both. Only today. We fancy ourselves to win the next 9 games. I do. I look at every game and think to myself, on our day, we can win all of those games. We are better than every team by a distance, but that's not how it always works, of course. It's not exactly how it sits itself down, but so will they. So will Arsenal and so will Man City. They'll look at their games, even after today, and go, we can win all 9 of those. So we've just got to lay down that marker early. I think you're absolutely right. I think that the Manchester United game away from home is traditionally, form can pretty much go out the window on that one to have a better word for it. That being a draw, not ideal, but it would be the worst result that I would accept if you understand what I mean.
No, I get what you mean. Because the thing is that we're going to, after United, we have Palace at home, and with Oliver Glasner, that's not going to be a walk in the park. That's going to be a tough fixture. I mean, listen, I know Palace have injuries. They're not the same team, but Glasner's a very smart coach. He's going to be very counterattacky. So that's very much a game where Liverpool are going to have to, dominate possession. I mean, we should beat them, but our worst game this year, performance-wise in the league, was Palace away, and we won 2-1. I know Arsenal wasn't great too, but I think in terms of like a first team that was on the pitch, that Palace game was terrible. There was no reason we should have won that game, but we were able to hold in and get it. And then we also have Fulham away, which those are really the 2 ones that I think are the biggest banana skins, because Fulham are a good team and they caused a lot of problems at Anfield, and they've beaten Arsenal. And Palace is just, like I said, it's Glasner, it's a new team, it's a new coach, it's that bounce. I mean, they're safe, so we could probably, if we score, I think we'd be okay. But it's also like they very much could play spoiler. Istanbul Part 2 in their minds again.
Istanbul.
Istanbul Part 2.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, actually, isn't it? Because the beast that we played earlier in the season in Crystal Palace, where I completely agree with you, I think it is our worst game of football. I've watched Liverpool play for a long time, probably since last season, to be totally honest, where we probably didn't deserve to win that game, and we did. We were very poor on the attack, but it's a different animal now. There's a new coach in there, so it offers a new problem. Of course, we don't have Roy Hodgson there to come and spoil the party for us. Absolutely. And I think Fulham owe us one, don't they? I mean, after us beating them last minute in the Premier League, us knocking them out of the League Cup, I think they've got an axe to grind. If any team's got an axe to grind now, it probably will be Fulham. And so, what I like to do is I like to focus on tomorrow's problem, and tomorrow's problem is going to be Sheffield United. And thankfully, that should be the least of my problems.
Maybe we can make up some goal difference. Maybe we can get some goal difference back on Sheffield United, like get a couple.
Well, we have to, don't we, really, if you think about it? Arsenal did. That's where these goals have come from. Arsenal took advantage of playing Sheffield United and winning 5-0, was it? But it was 5-0, 5-1.
they scored like 24 goals in like 4 league games, which is like they scored pretty much like 20 to 25% of their entire league goals for this season and like 3 games, which is not. I've always argued that's not sustainable, but like Arsenal just keep finding like, and they not scoring as many goals, but they're still grinding out results. So, I would argue if I was Arsenal, I would want those goals to come in other games or have come into other games before and not in these kind of big results against teams that you don't really need to win 9-0 against. So to speak.
No, I totally agree. It looks great, doesn't it? I mean, it does look great on the when your goal difference shoots up like that. And as you rightfully say, the work that the body of work that they've put in actually came in the last 6 games prior to what is now effectively the more difficult part of the league for them. So they took full advantage of that. And I think Sheffield United, we should be considering that. We should be considering an opportunity to increase our goal difference. And, I think we will. I think we created a lot of chances today. So back to today's game. Interestingly enough, 30 shots in total, 8 of which on target, 12 off target, and 10 blocked. So it tells you we weren't for want of trying. And Mo Salah breaking his record for the most shots in a game and only scoring 1 goal. Actually, just anyway, 11 shots. I think it's harsh, to be honest, when that's used, because some of his shots, they weren't exactly clear-cut chances. To be honest, there was McAllister was the engine in creating that, and we will go on to talking about him. And some of the chances that he created for Salah, you would say, are probably they're low quality in the basis of the opportunity. If he scores, wow, well done, brilliant. That's a fantastic goal, but it was harsh. But talking about Salah, I think it's interesting. What did you make of Mo Salah throughout the game, to be honest? Because for me, the first half, I became quite frustrated with him because he looked a little bit like when he played against Everton, where he wasn't really affecting the match. He wasn't really taking real charge of the opportunities that were being afforded to him. And yeah, I was a bit like, oh God, this isn't working out too great. And I'm looking at the bench and we know about Gakpo and blah, 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 and there's no Jota there. And I'm going, just keep going. To be honest, I just felt like keep going, and it happened for him. And the best chance, in my opinion, of the game, he scored. So I was very, very pleased with that. So what did you make of Mo Salah's performance today?
I mean, I think it's important to remind ourselves that, this is him coming back from a long injury. He is rusty. Yes, we have double dead. This is double D's daily, demolishing De Zerbi's demonstrous football. Alliteration out the wazoo.
We'll be going on to that.
So I think with Salah, I feel like the way we watch Salah is that, I feel like we're probably, I think, asking too much at times because he is so brilliant. So I actually think in the first half, he's doing a lot of the things that you would want your last line striker to do. He's making the runs. He's getting in positions. McAllister's giving the ball. A lot of those shots, like a lot of those missed shots, I'm pretty sure half of them were Salah's. It's more the fact that you would want him to do better with that chance, considering his quality. Ball at the top. It's not easy to keep it down and put it on target, but you could argue that if he keeps half of them on target, he probably has a hat trick, on the day, just with the runs and the chances. And again, assuming he's onside and everything else. But I think that, you can tell that Liverpool got better in the game when Salah was more involved, and not just like a scoring sense, but also a creative sense as well. And I think at times in that first half, especially, he was just making, you would say, the wrong decision, quote unquote, the wrong decision. I think that, that there's a few times he could have squared it to Nunez for a goal. But again, I think that's more the fact that Salah was, his first game back, and he was just really testing his shooting against Brighton again, being his first game back and his first real game back. But it was a typical Salah performance in which, he shoots a lot, could have squared it, could have passed it some more, was better when he was just involved, and he scores 2 winning goals. So, who are we to complain? Crack on.
Yeah, absolutely, and going back and thinking towards that second half as well, where the Bruggen, I believe I pronounced his name correctly there, made an absolutely fantastic save from Salah on his right foot, and it came in down there, and you think on another day, he's getting 2 or 3, and it's it's kind of what you'd expect from him, and it just today wasn't quite the day, but he was the difference, he was the important piece in what was one of the most difficult games left of the season for Liverpool, and we overcame it, which was, after the break, maybe lost a little bit of momentum, didn't win against Manchester United before the break, internationals, players traveling all over the world. You can start add a few bits and pieces as to why we could have been a little bit rusty. And I was really pleased that, we went there in the end and got the job done fantastically. Before we move on to Alexis McAllister, who I can wax lyrical about for the next 25 minutes, no problem at all. I need to make a mention to a player who I have been critical of for a little while. Luis Diaz, absolutely fantastic today. The Luis Diaz who I want to see every single week. He was brilliant. His anticipation for the chance that came to him in the goal that he scored was world class. Absolutely fantastic to be gambling on that situation even occurring, and I was very, very pleased to see that. And I saw the work ethic that came after that, where he was, fighting for the ball, putting tackles in, winning it back, really harrying the Brighton team, which is what you have to do, in my opinion. You can't give them time to think and make the decisions and pass through. You've just got to be really aggressive, and I think that's what Liverpool did as a team eventually, which actually is shown in part of the statistics. We made 20 fouls, of which we got, I think, 6 yellow cards. So this was a game where the tactic was rough them up, and it worked, to be totally honest with you.
Well, half those fouls was just players touching a Brighton player, and David Coote just blown away.
Yeah.
Half those yellow cards were just like were ridiculous. Like
Van Dijk's one was a little bit like, right, okay.
I've never seen a better performance from a referee from Greater Manchester than David Coote. I have nothing said against this man. This man reps United harder than Howard Webb ever did.
Yeah, thankfully the referee wasn't as influential on this game, but yeah, it was not great. It was not a great situation. So, but yeah, Luis Diaz, Dan, what do you think was the difference? Do you think it's in his head, or do you think it was something that we were doing, or do you just think that maybe today he's just had one of those games where things have just worked out for him? Because I thought he was great and very, very unlucky not to score a second if it wasn't for Lewis Dunk not having a big enough backside.
No, I mean, I think with Diaz, he's been better. He's been very good this side of January. I think part of that has been the fact that he's had a very interrupted season. He was very good at the start of the year. He was scoring goals. He looked to be like kind of back to his best, but you could tell he was still not in total form. Obviously, the incident happens with his family, and that kind of takes him out of it. He scores the tying goal against Luton, and then he's just kind of a shell of himself, but that's mostly just from like his confidence and just like, when you essentially go from being involved to like not doing anything for 2 to 3 weeks, it's very hard to get kind of back up to that level, especially as a professional athlete. I think that's been that as well. I think it's also helped that he's kind of had a number of games now with both, Robertson and Gomez. So like he's more confident with what's going on behind him. I think also having the likes of Alexis McAllister further forward have really helped him as well. And I think it's just a confidence thing at this point with Diaz, and it's kind of always been a confidence thing. Last year he had the injury that kept him out for most of the year. Even when they tried to bring him back, he still re-injured it. So for Diaz, it's just been like he's never had that kind of run of games where he could just play back to back to back, and we get to see him great. We get to see the best of him week in and week out, like we saw with Firmino, Mane, and Salah for all those years. And I think that's what we're seeing now is that, Diaz is now in his purple patch, now that Jota's injured, now that kind of Gakpo's out of the team and Darwin's been playing as a striker. I think Diaz is finally in his kind of best form, and it's at the best time. It's at the best possible time for this team. So I think that's what it is mostly. It's just a confidence thing. It's getting that run of games and getting that match sharpness back. And I think now we're reaping the rewards. I mean, I say all this against City, he probably should have scored 2 or 3 goals. But I will say if that City game was in like 2 weeks versus when it was, I feel like he would bury both those goals because it's just his confidence is up. He's not rushing as much. And even like today, the offside goal itself was still a good goal. Like, I mean, like the fact that he hits it beneath the keeper and it still has enough pace to go in, like that just shows where Diaz's confidence is now at this moment. And so, he deserves all the credit in the world. for being very criticized and maligned this season, I think unfairly at times.
No, I totally agree with you. Diaz, I mean, to be honest with you, Monster ate the pilot. He agrees with you as well. He has been brilliant. It's unfortunate because it's the one player who, like, all the other components of a Liverpool attacker are absolutely there. Like, the work rate's there, the dribbling's back, something which I was critical of him earlier on in the season when he wasn't taking the players on. That's back again. He's got the confidence where we needed him to be. It's looking at Diaz now and saying to ourselves, we just need to up those numbers. We need to up those things because they have, unfortunately, cost us. Today they didn't. Today they were absolutely invaluable, and we needed him today to be that player. We just know it's just that little bit that's just missing with him. So yeah, Monster at the part agrees with you there, definitely. Right. So Andy Nguyen has said on the most Salah shot on target chance in the first half. Yes. Szoboszlai's ball. Let's have just a discussion on. Let's go back to Salah before we move on to McAllister. I was really disappointed if this is the one that you're talking about, Andy. Great play from Szoboszlai. Plays Salah in. He's not 1-on-1, and it's not an easy chance. Absolutely, it's not. But I was very disappointed with the tameness of this effort. It kind of struck me to believe that he was almost in two minds between taking a shot and playing the pass, and he ended up passing it at the goalkeeper. That was a very frustrating moment for me because obviously it comes before he scored a goal. We're 1-1. A goal before half time could be massively important, and it did remind me actually of another player who just like Diaz against Man City, you need to be doing better. Don't you? You need to be doing better in those situations in your decision making.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know what chance you're talking about too, and I think the funny thing about that chance that I think he is caught in two minds. Again, I think it's just the rustiness because Salah in the past, like when you have that ball and you take it early at the top of the box, he just kicks it around the post into the far corner. That's normally what you would do in a finishing position. Is that if you're running through on goal and you're at the top of the box, just kind of within inside the width of the goal post, you just bend it. You try to like almost turn your foot almost beyond perfectly parallel, and then you just try to like get it to get that spin into the top corner. But again, that's just a sharpness thing, and I think that Salah's like he's caught in two minds, and I think the way he kicks it, almost like he kicks in the worst possible way because it's like it takes the pace out of it, and it's flat and it's on the floor. So it's like it's all three. It's one of those things is good, two of those things is bad. It's just like if he kicks that like almost like into the ground, it probably goes in. If he kicks it like off the floor, just maybe a little bit, it may bend around him a bit. So it's just one of those where you're just kind of like that's just Mo like being out of form, and that if he's in a run of games again, like I said, in probably 3 or 4 games, he's probably kicking that in the top corner first time, no questions asked.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought talking about midfielders now, we're going to McAllister. I just thought I'd get a little mention out there. I thought Dominic Szoboszlai was absolutely brilliant, by the way. I felt that he was really, really influential in that game. Very important for the assist for McAllister up for Mo Salah. Really nice play. Picked him out with a lovely ball. Takes a number of players out of the game. I thought he was fantastic. I thought his work rate was brilliant. I feel like it's the best we've seen of Szoboszlai since obviously that early flourish before the injury. I really felt like he was really back up to where we wanted him to be, and he was really important and influential in that game. He's still bombing run back down on that right-hand side, which we had a lot of problems with, very young back line of Bradley and Kwanzaa, and they went to attack it, and with some joy down that side, to be honest. Obviously, that's where the goal came from, and a couple of half-decent chances that Brighton had. But I just felt that Szoboszlai played absolutely fantastic, so I just thought I'd want to get that in there because he's been a little bit not his usual self. But somebody who is well and truly absolutely phenomenal is Alexis McAllister, and at £35 million, he's easily the signing. He has to be easily the signing of the summer. he was running that game. He was absolutely running that match. We were living in Alexis McAllister's world in that match. The balls he was playing early on to Mo Salah, every time the pace was right. They weren't overhit. They were on what you would dream of as to who that he wanted them to be on. And that kind of, it wasn't just the forward play that was so well. It was also the defensive actions that he was making. The yellow card that he received was incredibly harsh. I mean, I don't know what was going on there. It was a foul, maybe, but it's not a yellow card. So, yeah, that was unfortunate, but he was putting the tackles in. He was putting himself in the right positions. He was where he needed to be. He was dictating the play. You actually saw a couple of times when Brighton got themselves into a position where Keller had the ball. You could see he was actually getting a bit annoyed because he wasn't getting onto the ball where he wanted to play it forward. And I love seeing that, to be totally honest with you. So, yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And that assist, it was just slow motion. It was like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'll take the ball. And he just fired it into Salah's feet. Absolutely laser precise. And then obviously got the goal. And yeah, Alexis McAllister.
I think so. I think Alexis. It's funny you mentioned McAllister because I was thinking of another player that we've seen. He reminds me a lot of of when Bayern first got Thiago. I mean,
Don't say that.
But no, when Bayern got Thiago, not when we got Thiago as well.
Okay.
But for clarification, I just mean like he's been like a more industrious Thiago. He's obviously played a more intense side. Thiago had to, like he said, learn how to run. McAllister very much like knows how to run and is doing has done very well on the side. But you can tell that he's just so good. Like he's just, his intelligence, his reading of the game at times, it's the old line about Jan Molby back in the day. Like he can keep the ball in a phone box, so to speak. Those kind of old 80s, 70s, early 90s critiques. He's just, he's so good. And the fact that they got him for 35 million is just absolute steal. He's probably the closest midfielder, I think, in the Premier League to Kevin De Bruyne, and just like, what he all brings in. Maybe not his shooting is probably the one thing you could say against Alexis McAllister, is he doesn't have like De Bruyne's just ability to just like pass a ball on the floor into like the bottom corner from like 20 yards out, which is like, I'm okay if that's the one thing he can't do, is just, he doesn't score crackers. Again, considering the fact he scored.
He can. He certainly can, but not as many.
Yeah, not as many. But again, considering he scored the goal against Fulham. I think that McAllister, and again, I think the good thing about McAllister is that we've seen him now like as a pivot, as a 6, and how he can be a virtual there. We've seen him be as an 8 and kind of like this 8-ish, 10-ish role where he's further forward. And I think now we're seeing like his best qualities, but further forward. And I think that now we're reaping so many benefits from that, because it's just the one thing I would always say that Liverpool have always lacked, going even back to when we won the title, is that we've always lacked that player with a cool head that kind of has the mentality of an attacking midfielder. So everyone argued for years, even when we were winning trophies, Liverpool need to buy a 10, or Liverpool need to buy Bruno Fernandes, this player. And I think now you're seeing the benefits of having that type of player who's can play a 10 role and has the mentality of a 10, but has the work rate of an 8 or a 6 and has that combativeness in there. And I think it's just, it's amazing, because I think he's easily probably the best midfielder we've had since. People said Gerrard. I think probably to some degree, but I think for me, he's just like, he's having Naby Keita without Naby Keita's downsides, in the sense of like, he gives you everything you need, but without the injury proneness, without the like going missing in games. Like McAllister's always involved. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter what it is, he's always involved. And that's just like, I would say you can't buy that, but apparently you can for 35 million from Brighton.
You certainly can from them. Yes, absolutely. I wanted to make this because this not opinion, but this thought process of the way that kind of football's going forward is actually, it's been worded much better than what I've been wording it probably so much in our chat, talking about what Alexis McAllister is. And I've said Alexis McAllister is a 6. But that doesn't just mean he's just a 6. I mean, he's also an 8. He can do both. And I've been thinking as to where that we're trying to get those words out in the correct way. And this is probably been just the light's been switched on for me, is a book called Data Game by Distance Covered. who, if he's on Twitter, have a look at him, and if you can get his book, it's very, very interesting. And he's made a really, really good point in this one. And this is where I've got this. It's Josh Williams is the author, by the way.
Yeah. I read his. Yeah, I've read Josh Williams' book. It's really good. Yes, I'm glad you're mentioning it.
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad that you have as well. So you'll know this has come from. I think we're probably going to see more players who have a complete ability, who aren't. This is where he makes mention is the future of football is going to go towards the idea is that you won't have specialists. You'll have more and more players who will be able to do more and more jobs. And that's what I think Alexis McAllister is. That's where I've not been perhaps wording it as well as I needed to when I've said that he is a 6. I've said he is a 6 because in that game, Alexis McAllister was absolutely a 6 in what he was doing, when he was winning the ball back, when he was cutting out passes, when he was tracking back, when he was, tackling, when he was doing all that leg work that we've seen him do earlier on in the season. But then he was also doing a lot of what an 8 would do, playing these nice passes, making the moves between the two positions. And then he was also a 10. That pass that he played was 10-like, wasn't it? That was where it was. The pass he's made is just on the edge of the box. He's playing that little pass through. Nobody else is seeing it. And that's where I think it's going. I think Alexis McAllister is by far and away our most complete midfielder. I believe he has the skill set to do any job in that midfield that you ask him to do. And it's hard to say, let's put him into a 6, because as much as I know that he's more than capable of doing that because we've seen it, it almost feels like, but we're missing out on what he can do going forward as well. And as football fans, the more attractive side of the game is what can they do going forward as opposed to what they can do when we don't have the ball.
Absolutely. I said this over the summer that, one of the big debate, the big debate over the summer was the big debate over the summer was that how do we what midfielders are we buying? And I said, well, all the midfielders were buying profile as 6, 8s, or 10s. Yeah. And the argument was always like, well, this player's not a 6, he's an 8. Or Bajatic, he's a 6, he's an 8, he's a 10. This player's not a 6, he's not a this, he's that. And what I kept stressing was, and Josh Williams mentioned in the book, and I'm glad you mentioned this too, is that what football has moved towards, but in a very general sense, is that players now, you can profile any different way. So during a match, you're not playing a 6, you're playing a 6 for 10 minutes or an 8 for 20 minutes. And it's all conditional on the game. It's meant that players have a way to interrupt it. This is actually what De Zerbi's Brighton does very well, is the fact that, this is kind of the next step in football evolution, is that a lot of players, like you mentioned, you have a profile and you ask them to do specific things. You may have, but you're going to have 1 or 2 specialists.
There'll always be a 9 who is an elite, of course.
9, a goalkeeper or a left.
The goalkeeper. I can't ask him to play midfield. Yeah, that's it.
Well, listen, exactly. But I think, but that's what I mean. So there are going to be specialists, and even those specialists will be a bit multifunctional. Even this year, we're talking about Joe Gomez, who is profiled as a right back, a left back, and a center back. He's essentially the Nathan Ake, Joseph Guardiola, however you want to say it. That's the next evolution of not just player development, but how squad's doing it. And I've always said, we have midfielders that can play the 6, the 8, and the 10. They can play any of these roles in the line. Szoboszlai can play a 6, an 8, or a 10. An Endo can play a 6, an 8, or a 10. And the reason I know this is because we've seen Endo step up and play a 10 and score a goal, or he's been the furthest man forward sometimes. Curtis Jones, 6, 8, or 10. The only midfielder you would say is not a 6 or 8 or a 10 is probably Harvey Elliott, and that's because Harvey Elliott's more of either
he's an 8 or a 10.
He's a winger. So he's more of so he's primarily a creative profile. And
he's a right-sided player so much, isn't he?
Right-sided mid would be if back in the day, if this was an old 4-4-2 in the 90s, Harvey Elliott would be he's being right mid, right or left mid, depending on how you want to do your wings. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the point. That's where we've had many a spirited discussion. To be totally honest with you, I being one of that, Alexis McAllister is a 6, and it isn't that because he's not an 8. Of course he is. It's just the fact that I won't give in to the idea, and maybe I've now as I say, Josh Williams has really kind of just cemented it for me, is that I've had this mindset of that players so far now are not just one role. You know, Fabinho was a 6. Simple as that. He could only play in a 6. That's what he was. He was a specialist number 6. Moises Caicedo is a specialist 6. And to see players like Alexis McAllister coming into this team, he's not massive, he's not huge, but he's out there and he's shown the capability of doing certain things, and he's gone out there, and today I've seen him doing the 6, as you say, and that could have been for 5, 6, 8, 10 minutes, and then he's into an 8, then all of a sudden he's into a 10, and it's all that dynamicness of the match, and that's what's so important, and that's why going forward, as Monster 8 the pilot has said, he says hybrid CMs is the future, and I think he's absolutely correct in that, is that players going forward will need to have a complete skill set, especially at that top level, at that top sort of realm of players, where you're going to need to be able to say, right, I need you to drop in and do this for 10 minutes. I need you to drop in and do this for 6 games. You know, it's not just a case of, you know, in game, they'll have to be able to do it afterwards. So yeah, Alexis McAllister today was absolutely phenomenal, and player of the match, absolutely. I thought, can I give him an 11 or a 12 out of 10, because I thought he was unbelievable. So important to us. We got the best midfielder out of Brighton, let me tell you that for a fact. And I think the prices got swapped on the price tags, to be totally honest, because if we paid 115 million for him, I'd have been a very, very happy man. Right, we'll quickly put a little line on Jurgen Klopp, 300 wins. Unbelievable numbers, to be honest. And yeah, 300 of them, not many more to go, though, I'm afraid. How do you feel about it, Dan? How do you feel about it? Can't hear you, buddy.
There we go. Sorry about that. So we're not having that again. We're not having Dan lost the ability to his speaker's not working again. I mean, it's crazy when I think at times when Jurgen Klopp's going to be gone, this was always the thing we've talked about, they speculated before, is that people are going to look back and say, did he win enough? And the obvious answer is that is like, yes, he has one of the highest winning records of any time. And like, he's up there with Fergie and Wenger, and like even surpassed them in some aspects. And it's only because he coached with Pep Guardiola's 115 financial charges, allegedly. No, it's actually real now. Manchester City that he didn't win more than he should have. And I think winning 300 wins for the time he's done it, he's one of the best. I think he's the highest winning percentage Liverpool manager of all time. Maybe I think next to Paisley and Fagan.
By a good way.
Yeah. So like we need to accept. I think accept is the wrong word, but like we need to understand that like when we look back on this, it's like we did way more than you could ever ask as a manager. Like you are not going to win 100% of your games, but he's the closest that he's done more than so many other great managers have had done in the past with just as good and legendary teams. And the reason he didn't win more was things that are beyond his control, so to speak. He coached that side to win as best as he could. And you considering where we started from in 2015, 2016 is a minor miracle how fast we evolved into the side that we currently are today. Yeah, we don't have that many more left. And I think it's the sad thing about the United game and the result is that we get 2 less games of Jurgen Klopp with Liverpool. However, we just have to
keep inventing competitions and we'll just keep him.
No,
it's another game. There's another one.
True. That's true. I mean, listen, I just think it's just our time to enjoy him. This has been his longest job. I think that, when he retires, I think he's going to take a year sabbatical. He'll probably end up at Germany or somewhere else. I imagine by the World Cup qualifying side when they transition from Nagelsmann to when the DFB transition from Nagelsmann to Klopp. We just have to enjoy these moments. And because, it's just going to be less fun. We're not going to get a 2-1 against Brighton where, we're trying to give the ball away and also score every 5 minutes. We're not going to get the 4-3 Fulhams, what's like the 4-2 Burnleys or like the 4-3 Palaces. It's just we'll be good and we'll still probably win things. We'll probably win more things, but it just might be less fun about it. It'll just be more mechanical, more methodical.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point because there's something that needs to be said. And, for me, I'm 33 on Wednesday. So I've been there and I've seen the good times, the bad times, and the S times. And
The Hodgson
I don't,
era. The
yeah,
Hodgson
I'm not
era,
going.
yes.
Yeah, that's it. The Hodgson era. I've not just in the Hodgson era. I've seen some areas which are just like, oh god, you know. So what we need to understand is especially for us is that we're all very want to be positive and we should be positive about the future, especially with the people who we are linked to, not Roberto De Zerbi, Ruben Amorim. If we do bring in, as you rightfully say, we all want it to be better, and there's a very good chance that it could be. There's a very good chance that a new manager could come in with the foundations that have been laid over the last 7 years of Jurgen Klopp, and he comes in and this new manager is capable of going on and we win more trophies, in quantity. And it's rightfully said that the context is put in there that Liverpool have won 1 out of 5 Premier Leagues that they should have won, but you'd taken away the context of missing out on 2 of those by a point. That doesn't mean that they were not a good team. It doesn't mean that they weren't an incredible club. Liverpool have scored 3 times in points tallies above 90, of which wins the league every single time, barring the time City have won it, unfortunately. We won every time that Arsenal won the league. We'd have won it every time Manchester United have won the league. And that's just a fact. It's just unfortunate, the quality and the talent. And the truth of the matter is that a league with this Manchester City and Pep Guardiola at the helm is a lot harder than the Premier League has ever been, based on the number of points, based on the consistency. You can't draw matches now. A draw is as bad as a loss. We're looking at now. We're looking at losing 1 game all season. 2 games in the Premier League this season, and we've drawn 6. Is it? I believe we've drawn 6 or 7 games. 6. I think 6 games.
I think it's 7.
7 games. In the past, you could do that. Now those 7 were going. Could hurt us, those. Could really hurt us, those, and that's the reality of it. So, yeah, enjoy it while we can, everybody. We'll just touch on it very closely. What did you make of De Zerbi? What did you make of De Zerbi, the way it's set up? Do you think that he was getting the measure of us, or do you think that it was a case of this was just as good as he could do with what he had tools-wise?
I mean, I think so. I think with Roberto De Zerbi, I think at times I don't know what people are expecting. This is his 2nd year at Brighton. Again, like I said, he's lost a lot of players. He has a very young team, a very talented team, but very rusty, very raw. I mean, people forget when McAllister first came to Brighton, he was a good player, but he was not the mix of McAllister we have now. And that was under Graham Potter as well. I mean, De Zerbi's very weird. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yes, and that's the end of the stream, guys. Thanks very much.
He's a very weird tactically set up. So, they very much play like a number formation. I think today was more like a 3-4-3 kind of setup with wingbacks, but it was also like a 5-3-2 at times.
Yeah.
But the way De Zerbi coaches and has they do this very much a hybrid man marking attack system, but it's also a bit zonal. Like the way he coaches football is kind of that. Is very much that new era. Like he's very much bringing on a new system in a similar way to Marcelo Bielsa did, with this kind of man marking, less as intense as Bielsa, but De Zerbi. Well, yeah, but with Bielsa, the thing with Bielsa at Leeds was they just ran out of legs, and that's the thing about Bielsa's teams. With De Zerbi, I think what you're seeing now, and I think what you're going to see now going forward with a lot of coaches, if it's Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta, is that the starting position of attacks is no longer going to be the halfway line or the 6-yard box. It's the goal line. That now that the way football has gone with De Zerbi's Brighton with Potter, and now Guardiola does this, but this is the new evolution, is that the way you beat pressing teams, and is what De Zerbi's trying to do, is that you essentially start attacks on the goal line. You make the pitch massive. It's like you're no longer compressing space and playing within you want to play within a third or like a quarter of the pitch. You're playing now. You're making them play the whole pitch as well. I think with De Zerbi, he's a very good coach. It would be very fun to have him. I just think he might be not pragmatic enough for a team like Liverpool. This is the problem of being a top coach, is that what people think about Guardiola is that he's this ideologue that never changes. Pep Guardiola plays a 4-4-2 with 4 center backs. He's playing a 1990s, who was the manager of Arsenal in the 90s? Graham. What? George Graham. George Graham.
George
He's actually
Graham.
playing a George Graham Arsenal from the 80s to the 90s. Or, you know, you can even say like an old like Arrigo Sacchi team. Like Pep Guardiola has his principles, but he's not someone that's like is just going to be these principles and never make changes. Like he's very much evolved from a, you know, flying fullback with Walker and Mendy and even Cancelo or, you know, and Helino. He's now playing 4 center backs at defense and Erling Haaland who doesn't press up top and essentially a big man, little man strike partnership with like either Foden or De Bruyne. So yeah, I think with De Zerbi, he's a good coach. He's talented. He's got good ideas. I think he'll do well at Brighton. He'll probably, his next step up is, I would say that his next job after this should be something like a Newcastle or a Tottenham or, you know, a club that's like a bigger club than Brighton, but maybe not with more resources, but maybe not quite the Liverpool job yet, because I feel like De Zerbi, like Edge Postecoglou, they have a very specific way they're playing and they're really trying to enforce in their players, but they haven't really managed a big club yet. And you kind of want someone that has like that knows what it's like when like you're going into a title run and where you're like you're either the favorite, the second, or the third favorite every year. And that's why I think someone like Ruben Amorim works, because Amorim has that experience. He's just as tactically flexible. Oh wow, Kovacic almost scored. And he also knows what it's like to be in a title challenge with 2 big clubs in Porto and Benfica. So I think De Zerbi deserves a lot of credit. You know, he made Brighton a much bigger team. He's done much better than what Potter did with them. And, you know, I think he'll go on to be a great coach. I just think that, you know, the Liverpool job maybe is one step too beyond him. I say that as someone that it could be De Zerbi. We all moan and groan, and then Liverpool win 10 games out of 10. And then, you know, and we're all just like, oh, what were we complaining about?
I'll still be here making excuses, don't you worry. It's all luck, is what I'll be saying.
Never please, double D's aren't enough for you. You need triple D's. You need.
I'll be Players FC, mate. I'll be Players FC. He's relying on the players. It's not to do with him. It's Salah digging him out or Nunes or something. That's what I'll be about. I'm dying on that hill, I'm afraid. And you'll see a very dejected young man on the streams going forward if Roberto De Zerbi does become our manager. Not because I don't think he's a good manager, because he is. He is a very good coach. Of course he is. I'm not trying to dig him out without having some form of backing to it. And my opinion comes from a couple of points. And one of them being is, he doesn't have the CV yet to even be considered for our job. And that's the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, winning the Ukrainian league with Shakhtar Donetsk, brilliant, you know, but you're not blowing my socks off there. The Ukrainian league is right up there with the Danish league. It's right up there with the Swedish league. It's not a league that is yet to even come into our stratosphere at the moment. He's come to Brighton, and of course he's implemented a really interesting, exciting style of football. And of course, he's lost 2 important players. He's had a number of injuries. All those excuses and all those reasons are absolutely valid, of course. However, like you rightfully said, I just feel that his style and brand of football, which I think he'll die on the hill with, will eventually be will be adapted to remove some of the issues that it has, some of the problems that it comes with. Somebody will take those principles and go, I love that bit, and I'm going to keep that bit, but I'm going to adjust it. I think De Zerbi's football would be very exciting for us going forward. However, it will also, in my eyes, in my view, I feel that we would draw a lot more games than we should. And I think that's because we would concede more chances and concede more goals because of that. We already play a very risky style of football under Jurgen Klopp, which we trust our players, we trust our centre-backs, we trust our goalkeeper, of course, and that's the foundations of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool in the last 3 or 4 seasons, and it's worked. However, I feel that De Zerbi's style, albeit very high risk, very high reward, is what you could suggest. And he would see an upturn in his results with better players, you would imagine, that we possess. I just don't feel that, one, he has the CV, 2, the style of football would be possible to be consistent enough to win a title. I think we would be very exciting. I think we would win games. I just don't feel that he would have the consistency that we would require. And something that you've rightfully said there as well, which is important under Ruben Amorim, and something which I'm still linking towards Xabi Alonso, and is I still want Xabi Alonso as my number one choice. However, of course, that's increasingly unlikely. However, it's not set in stone. Things can change. But you've said something very correctly. Ruben Amorim's been out there and done it. He's also done it under some very difficult circumstances. He's come up against a Benfica and a Porto team who dominate that league, a Sporting Lisbon who have been a waning force. He's regrown them. First title in 19 years. Last season, not quite as good, but again, he lost a couple of players that were really important to him. Manuel Ugarte was very important. He's lost João Paulinho, has been there at his team. You know, these are the kind of players which we laud, especially in that CDM position. And, you know, he's been able to this season, top of the table, game in hand, least chances conceded, most shots. Again, the only difference being is, and the only reason I put Alonso ahead of Amorim, even with all of the experience that Amorim has, and I'll be very, very happy if he comes, it's just, I always feel that Liverpool were a sentimental bunch, and sometimes after losing Jurgen Klopp, it's going to be difficult, and those opening 8 to 10 games, like you rightfully said, if anyone comes in and wins the first 10, then it's going to be difficult to sit there and pull a face. I'll still try my best with De Zerbi. However, with Alonso, if it doesn't just start right when they're trying to implement that new style of football or change the way things have been done, he will have a lot more rope than I think any other manager would get. That's my opinion. I don't know what you think of that, Dan.
No, I absolutely agree. Actually, one of the things I've always tried to keep in mind is that I think there are plenty of great managers that could do great with the Liverpool team and win trophies, but I've always been more worried about the fact that, like you said, like Alonso's the one manager on the market that would get time. You know, it didn't matter who the next manager was. Like, you could bring in a Luis Enrique, who's a very good manager, who made the best at Barcelona side of all time, besides Pep Guardiola. And, you know, he could come in and people would be calling for his head after 8 games because Liverpool have, you know, won 5, drawn 3, lost 2. And it's like, that's actually not a bad start to the year. But like, you know, it's like, oh, at this point, like Liverpool are 4th, like 6 points off the league, and the league's gone. The league's gone now. Like, you know,
heads would fall. Heads would fall off.
And it's like,
and that's my thing. You know, if it's Alonso, it'd be all right. You know, he's one of ours. He's one of our own. And with Amorim, I'm absolutely convinced that we will give him time as a fan base. Some will give him less than others. I also believe that there's a good chance he comes in and is able to implement his style of football quite quickly, and our players have got the ability to implement it very quickly. It's just, that's the only difference I'll give to Alonso than anybody else, is based on the fact that Alonso's out there doing lots of Liverpool stuff, winning games in the last minute, exciting football, not knowing when to get beating a Bayern Munich, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely fantastic. And Amorim's gone out there and won a title, could potentially win a cup double this season. It's just that little difference. That's the only thing between them for me.
Absolutely. I mean, you can literally see with Arsenal, like Arteta was an Arsenal player. Like he could have been sacked and he would, like, Arsenal
He'd be well
fired managers. Arsenal have fired managers for more offensive, for less than they kept Arteta for when those seasons, like missing on top 4. I think it was like 2 or 3 seasons in a row where they had that run last year. So yeah, but they still gave him time, you know, had that sentimentality, you know, ignoring Arsenal Fan TV and, you know, the online Arsenal community, which is its own kind of content. It's their own content creation mill in their own way as well. No, I completely agree. I think that's Alonso has that sentimentality. I do think people will be more patient with Amorim than they probably would be with a De Zerbi or a Thomas Frank, or insert any. No, exactly. Well, insert other manager here, because I think people would like, you know, Amorim has a CV that you would that gives him credit in the bank, so to speak, versus, say, again, De Zerbi, Frank, or any of these other managers. Again, everyone knows Alonso will be the first choice. I've always said that, like, you know, there's always a chance he stays at Leverkusen, and then that's the more likely outcome than him going to Munich. I think if he's going to stay at Leverkusen this year, I think we just have to kind of accepted that this reality is probably not going to happen now, and that Alonso, if he's going to be Liverpool manager, is probably not going to be Liverpool manager for like until he's 50, probably for another 8 years. You know,
it's going to be 8 to 10 years, isn't it? To be honest, you know, if
probably
things
8.
work out, if things
Probably
work
8
out
years.
with Amarin, then yeah, it's going to be 8 years, isn't it? It's going to be well, potentially a long time. And I think, you know, like you rightfully said there, Amarin, you know, he's got the CV, he's got that point. I'm already sort of in my mind giving Alonso that title, because I think that if he lost the title from this position, thank God, let's not get him, because you know this is where it's down to it now. He's all but got his hands on the cup. He's just not lifted it quite yet. A couple of games to go. Potentially they lose one more match by Bayern. I think it could be over. I think 6 points do they lose and they win Leverkusen. It's mathematically done. So it's pretty much there. So with Amarin, if he wins another title, he's been there and done it. And I think that's something that Liverpool need. I think we need a coach who's been there and done it and won trophies. There's a difference between being a good manager, because there's been lots of good managers who've won nothing. Maurizio Pochettino is one of them. You know, but
he did win League One. He did League he won League with PSG. It still counts.
Dan, me and you could have done it for half the money and we'd still won that league. Let's be honest. And I would take that off of PSG if you fancied it. But what I would say is that's what I'm saying. Pochettino is a great coach, of course. He's a great manager. However, he's not a winning manager. He hasn't won anything of note yet. He's not, and that's what we need as a club. We need to be going somewhere like we did with Jurgen Klopp, who's been out there and done it. He's won the trophy. He's been up against the adversity and he's proven it. And that's what we need now. And that's what I think Alonso will have. I think by come the end of the season, he will have done that and proven that point. Potentially invincible, which would be incredible. But Amarin could potentially have done 2 in 3 years with Sporting Lisbon and overturns, you know, the Porto Benfica stranglehold on the Portuguese league with a limited budget, with players that he's developed and brought through himself, and with his own brand and style of football, which is, you know, suitable to what we have. So I just can't wait for it to be over, to be totally honest. But yeah, back to
I know.
We're just bringing it back just onto De Zerbi. I don't feel that he did anything wrong today. I think he did what he could with what he had. I think he attacked our right hand side, which is the weakest point. They got the joy in there. That's what happened. But unfortunately today, there was nothing that he could have done as this, you know, manager of there with the tools that he had available to him to really hurt us. And I think on another day, Danny Welbeck doesn't bury that one. And eventually that game ends up becoming a Liverpool 2-0, no problems. Because after that, Brighton had very limited opportunities to actually hurt us. And that is based on, of course, the tools they had available to us and, you know, the sheer quality of the Liverpool team as well.
I do want to say one thing, because I know we're getting close to wrapping this up. I do want to say that I think one of the things that changed, and I think it's a player we haven't talked about, is the fact that Connor Bradley adjust to Brighton's attack very well. It's because what was happening is that he was giving Ndringer space because, you know, he's pacey, and Ndringer was using that space to run at him and like cause problems and get him behind him. And what Connor Bradley changed is that he said, I can't give this man space. I can't let him turn. So I'm going to go into him tight and not let him turn. And it's like, you either get the foul, you win the ball, and that's how you have to beat him. And I think that's actually a good shout out to both him and Bradley and Kwanzaa, because between them being both very young players, they figure out how to stop that Brighton attack. And then once they do that, Brighton are not as effective. And afterwards, they just have to resort to long balls, quick free kicks and long balls, trying to catch out position. And they lose their one-on-one battles. But I just want to give Connor Bradley a shout out, because I feel like, I
thought he started out where he was struggling and he was getting caught out a couple of times. And again, like you rightfully said, that when the adjustments came, they implemented them fantastically, and he was really important going forward. Once he started getting stuck into their obviously their right hand sides, and he was doing a really, really good job, to be honest with you. And like you say, that it could have been a very tough afternoon, but the adjustments were made, and if Trent was playing, there probably would have been a 3-part documentary on it already as to, you know, how he was getting skinned. So Conor Bradley somehow gets away with that one. But no, I was very, very pleased. I don't think Zerbi did anything wrong. I just, again, this wasn't a masterclass, which, you know, would have been the conversation point had he come here and somehow achieved a win against us. And thankfully he didn't. So yes, there we are. Right, everyone. That is the hour. You have joined me and Dan, the two Ds, after Liverpool beat Brighton 2-1. 1 down, 9 to go, 27 points still available. And
the big 9, we're here for it, Dan. We're here for the big 9.
We'll be big. We will be here for the big 9 on the way in, and we'll have some fun on the way, I'm sure. So if you've enjoyed the stream, give us a like, put a comment in there, subscribe if you can for us. It's really important to us, and we will catch you on the next one. See you later, everyone. Bye bye.